perhaps full-time, ideally not, to take up the slack. That's completely aside from this discussion of a town administrator. That discussion focuses on fundamentally changing the structure of town administration. If we don't do that, Linda's still leaving, Kelly's still moving up, and we're still almost certain to fill another chair with a player to be named later. I'm not convinced that 2 people is enough to do the work that I see going through that office now. But I'm not completely convinced that this town is ready for town administration on a professional level with a degree in public administration and all the expense that comes with that. And that's why we're talking about it. Madame.
So, just want to be clear on what's budgeted here. The administrative assistant wages is the town administrator, where you dump that money. And we spent in 2015 $34,000, and now you're budgeting $46,000. You're only at $12,000 for this person?
No, that's just poor presentation there. The 2015 expense was for Linda Christie. That's going to go away. That line, should we choose to go in that direction, will be renamed administration. The line below is clerical,
Right.
which is Kelly and we bet her staff after April 1st.
Okay. So
And I don't think the numbers are big enough to reflect what we think we have to do.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Especially if Linda's going to be working 16 hours.
So, Joel, do you have a salary in mind for this new position?
All I know for sure is that they're paying that guy in Lineborough about $54,000 a year plus an insurance package.
So I think from our point of view, what we were expecting was about $75,000 all in. Salary plus benefits plus taxes. And that's just a starting point.
This is a discussion. We're not making legislation.
Right.
Matthew.
So based on what I've heard so far, I'm wondering how this person's performance will be judged. Is the expectation that he's going to save more than he costs? And if he doesn't save more than he costs, has he done his job? Or is it about access to selectmen who have full-time jobs in a way that hasn't always been true? To make it flow better without saving money? Or what is the goal? And how will the goal be judged to be met or not?
That's a good question, and I'm only speaking for myself. I think I would view success as the town is operating smoothly, that the things that we expect to get done are getting done, and that person has begun to identify some areas that we can save money. If we have somebody tasked with this full time, yes, I expect to see savings from them. Now, does that take 6 months? Does it take a year to find? Does it pop up a year and a half because we haven't looked at this certain expense in that long? Is that how it happens? Perhaps. But what I would expect is that our operating costs of our town with this person on board shouldn't increase. That they should be able to at least justify their own means, even though that isn't exactly the goal. That I can't define. I can't hire somebody and say, should you not come up with $75,000 in savings after the first year you're fired or something like that.
Judy.
In light of what you just said, is the job description delineated so that when you're interviewing this person, you have specific things in mind that you're sharing with him so he knows what is expected?
It's quite detailed. We grabbed one from Lineborough, and then Priscilla and I customized it. I don't think it's up on our website, but it sure could be. And I want to stress that this is a proposal and this is a work in progress. We don't actually think that we know exactly what we're doing, which is sadly for you, always the case with your select board. They're really, the guys in Lineborough, the selectmen in Lineborough said there's 2 reasons to hire a town administrator. One of them is that your current selectmen are either doing a crappy job or they're just completely overwhelmed. And the other one is that bringing a professional administrator into this environment, remember, we're a $4 million corporation, pays for itself and more, both in cash saves, but also in increased efficiency, which turns into either a smaller staff or a staff that doesn't continue to expand over time as, pick your government, as our responsibilities trickle down from Concord and become broader and more extensive. In Lineborough's case, both of those things were true when they started, and they continue to be true after their third year of their experiment. Our actual mileage will certainly vary if we go down this road at all. I'm not convinced we're ready for it, but I'm very interested in the discussion. Donna?
Okay, so it seems like what Carol said about health insurance, finding a cheaper health provider, that's like a 1-year savings. How is this guy or woman going to save $75,000 each and every year to justify it?
I think that's an ongoing process, not a 1 year. I mean, every time something changes with the, you look at the way the health insurance has changed in the last 10 years or so, it's totally consolidated. The laws have changed with Obamacare, and you know, it's like reading this stuff for Joel in terms of opt-out, it was almost like you needed a legal degree to determine whether or not you could do this anymore. You know, you've got HSAs, there's tax codes involved, and so that's an ongoing process with something like that. So it's never going to change.
So health insurance is going to be a big problem every year.
I wouldn't say it's going to be a big problem every year, but it's something that somebody running any kind of business has got to be cognizant of over time.
And I think I would add to that, though, just the regulatory environment. It's not just healthcare, but it's,
That's the one that seems to come up as a possible money-saving, salary-justifying
sure,
expense.
sure. But I think we can all agree that, the number of regulations we see at the state and federal level all impact the town, whether it's environmental or things like that. And there's a lot of work that goes into making sure we're compliant. I mean, even within law enforcement, within fire and ambulance and everything else, health, everything, it might be good to have some better eyes on that so we avoid costs. If we don't comply with something that can cost the town. I think Mark had something left for.
So, I mean, some of the other things that, where they are helpful, and I'm not necessarily advocating, I'm just making sure that people understand some of the other jobs that this man or woman would do is, that Kelly and Linda get stuck with now is, Mr. Such and Such comes in and is not really happy about his culvert. He's not really happy about David. He's not really happy about who knows what he's not really happy about. It gives him somebody to talk to. Somebody who's going to listen, somebody who's going to pass on the message, and a point person that he can reach no matter what. Whoever's doing the other clerical work does not have to stop doing what they're doing. They can continue to do what they're doing. A lot of filling out the forms, the MS this, the MS that, it requires a tremendous amount of concentration and requires uninterrupted time. One of the towns I worked for actually shuts down on Wednesdays at noon for the whole rest of the day so that everybody in town hall can have uninterrupted time, because otherwise we always get interrupted. It sounds small, but these decisions happen every week. New postage meter, well, who to go with, which one, how big, what's the terms, all of that sort of hooey is stuff that you got to do every single day, all these little decisions. They'll never save $75,000 a year on a budget this size. It's just not reasonable. I would hope by the next meeting, if this stays in the line item tonight, that we would have the job description to review and get a better sense of what they might do. Want
to continue to talk about this? It is, after all, a single item on a document with hundreds of lines.
Bob, when you spoke with the gentleman from Longborough, what were he makes about the same amount of money as we're talking about here. He's been in the job for how long?
About 3 years here, but he's got
And
12 years of experience. And no, they wouldn't let us talk to him about hiring him.
Okay, was there a discussion between you and he about the kind of money that he was able to save, say, on average?
The selectmen were willing to say only that his first year was great, and every year after he had basically paid for himself one way or another. 1 year it was fuel administration. The first year, all he's referring to, it was Social Security. And that's they were doing it wrong over there, and they hired this guy to fix it. Turns out we're not doing it wrong.
Right.
But I'll bet there's something else out there we're doing wrong out of ignorance that has a price tag. And so the concept of professionalizing the administration of this town is what we're trying to evaluate with your help. That's all. I'm not completely married to it. I can see it being essential in the midterm, but I don't think it's a deal breaker for 2016. I think a lot depends on the quality of the people that you get to run for select board, and that, as you can tell just by looking around the room, is kind of a crapshoot. Some years you're luckier than others, and we'll just leave it as an exercise to the reader about what kind of year this is. You still want to talk about this?
Well, you certainly contributed to that, that's for sure.
The crapshoot part?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Saddam,
Have we looked at any other towns, or is that the only town?
this is, my sample size includes one town.
Have you thought about, I mean, it's kind of up in the air, so have you thought about putting it in a warrant article to vote at the town? If they wanted a town administrator, should we put this on hold to look into it a little bit further? I want to say that the budget committee has done a really great job on trying to find a lot of savings throughout the year. It is time consuming, like Carol said, there's no doubt about it, less people volunteering, but they have really, put together and looked at line item by line item throughout the year, and I would just assume another year would make a big difference.
I'm game.
I mean, I'm kind of like what Donna said, I wonder about the savings year after year after year.
Mrs. Rowland.
Part of me agrees with you, Barb, and part of me disagrees with you that, sitting in a meeting this morning with the, 2/3 of the select board, I think this budget is about as lean as you're gonna get it, with a bunch of volunteers looking it over and trying to figure out what people are doing. As I was saying earlier, that list of things that are bigger projects that we really need to be looking into, unless we can get more volunteers and more committees, it's not gonna happen. And those are the potential
I
for
think some of those bigger projects,
savings.
we had talked about have been projects that have been neglected through the years just by people in the departments alone, not coming forth saying, we need a post replaced or we need a door replaced. Little things that could have been done year after year after year. And now all of a sudden, at the end of this year, we crammed a lot of those things in to spend money, but the money has been in there every year for general maintenance, and things haven't been getting done. And now we have a punch list, like you say.
Talking about just general maintenance, though, that punch list deals with a lot of other things in terms of looking at how we do business as a whole, and unfortunately, we're in a hard time, so I'll see if I can get internet service and pull it on my phone to refresh my memory, so, it's been focusing more on numbers of late, but you don't have a hard copy of that. But, I think it's something we really need to consider, because I think the numbers on the budget committee are gonna start dwindling really fast. Unfortunately, we've had 2 members that have, gotten hurt in accidents this winter and may or may not be back, and a few others that have had to leave because of business constraints, and it's harder and harder to fill the ranks with these things, and that's gonna be a concern, so.
Would you like to wrap this particular discussion up with a sense of a meeting? Do you have any advice for the selectmen that you sort of agree on? One proposal is, wait till next year. One proposal is turning into a warrant article, make it more democratic that way.
Yes.
I'm game. What's your pleasure? And remember, I'm administrating this meeting, I'm not advocating for one of those positions. Just a second. How'd that work? Either one of those things is good for you?
More sense, yes.
Yeah, I think you ought to leave it in, because the select board has obviously beaten this up and talked about it and made a I'm assuming a 2-for-1 vote here, right, on approving this position. And when you do your mailing, all right, you include in that mailing or by a separate mailing an explanation of what this position is, because it's the biggest single line item that affect the budget would put you over last year, is what I just heard. All right, you're still within the 3% cap, which was voted in, so technically, you're not in violation of anything. So why not inform the public, let the public make the decision at the deliberative session? Because here there's what, 75 people, and hopefully at the next meeting, the deliberative session, there'll be 3 times that amount, and then they can vote it at that point whether they want it or not. And I think, you know, because from this meeting, what I suspect is that the word is gonna go out that we're gonna have this without the select board actually giving their position to the voters. And having it known in advance of the deliberative session. I think that's really important.
If I can say something about the office that I've been in for a couple of years, just to give you guys an overview, Linda and I have really given it a lot of thought. There's gonna be a lot of changes with her leaving. There's still a lot of room for growth. And what Linda and I did is we really sat down and we really tried to look at the future of our office with all of the demands that we have on a day-to-day basis to make sure that this town is running smoothly. Whether it's the highway department, whether it's transfer, whether it's the culvert issues, whether it's a tree down, whether it's welfare. And you really do not want people in and out of that office as far as a high turnover rate, as far as employment. And we are looking at this when we did this budget to really invite high quality people, come to our town, and really make this the best. Look at the budgets, look at our numbers, and there's so much other stuff in our office that's not even touched upon in this that we do on a day-to-day basis when we answer to the state. And we do all the DRA reports, and we have meetings with the assessors, and we work on all the exemptions. So we really gave it a lot of thought, and I love that office. But I need your support. I need this to be funded so we can really, really rally around and bring in really high quality people to make this work and make this office. You do not want this office to be down at all. It's payroll, it's bills, it's everything. So, I mean, we really tried to keep within the, you know, Carol's group and what they had done, and all of Bob's group and recommendations, and we really tried to look at what we needed to do. So that's why the numbers are reflected, and the reality is they could really be 2 full-time people in that office all the time. I mean, it's, you know, we're in there early, we're in there later, I take stuff home on the weekends and do the stuff, because there's so much stuff. So I know it's new, I know it's a lot more money, but we need to surround ourselves with educated, highly qualified people to make it work. And Linda has been phenomenal. We're so fortunate to have her, but the reality is you're not going to get anybody for what she's been making, hands down.
Are you working full-time, Ellie, or?
I do, I love it, I love it, I love it.
Juliana, would you like to have the last word before we all agree to just think about this until February?
Well, I apologize, I arrived late, prior commitment. But I do want to say, as a member of the AABC, that I have to say I don't understand how the selectmen over the years have done this without a huge amount of extra support. The amount of work that the AABC has done and the committees that they've broken out, and the way that they've met with all the department heads, and I just, 3 people who have full-time jobs and are then also trying to help run this town is extremely difficult. I think it's a little horrifying to think that a tiny little town like us is thinking about having a town, whatever you want to call it. However, on the other side, I don't know how we really can continue without them.
Maybe Carol had the last word. Maybe Bobby will.
I found the punch list, and I just wanted to go over a couple things, because I think they reflect why we really need somebody along these lines. The version I found was dated November 12th, and I know it's a little out of date. One of the things, the first thing on the list, the mileage policy, that's been done, but we had no mileage policy in terms of how do you reimburse people that are going off for training. There was no master list of stipends for what volunteers get. We weren't doing a very good job of tracking and dividing costs between departments, such as for supplies, fuel, cell phones, things like that. We were looking for better, I think we still are, better maintenance tracking policy for vehicles. We needed to look into how we were doing billings for transport. There were some, for ambulance, some changes with that. The capital improvement plan, and Glenn, speak up here if I misspeak, we wanted to inventory equipment, and not just big stuff like the ambulance and the fire truck, but air tanks and stretchers and things like that. What's our rotation for routinely replacing these things? Hose, the whole building maintenance issue that Barb mentioned. The transfer station, do we keep a transfer station, or do we go to something like Walpole did, with pay as you go? What's the financial, doing a financial analysis of something like that? We've been asking the selectmen to routinely review the budget on a monthly basis, and I don't think you guys have really had time to do that because you've been so busy with other stuff. And you've let the budget committee do that, good or bad. Compensation and benefits, these guys put together quite a report on that, but it was obvious that we didn't have job descriptions for all employees or a formal review process. Some of the things with the emergency management coming out of that, so I mean, the list just goes on, and it seemed like it got longer, and we started the list because we needed to keep track of what needed to be done. So those are the reasons that I feel strongly, both as a taxpayer and as the acting chair of the budget committee, that we need to be looking into this sooner rather than later.
I agree with Bob that it needs to be left in there, but I do think that, under the line item 110, that you need to change it, not say administrative assistant. That way people will know
I completely
the
agree.
next gathering, if somebody wants to change it, they can at that point.
I think we can do it. I think we can do that without too much trouble. Other comments on this particular topic? Just say them.
A year ago, we needed a police chief, and we budgeted for a police chief, and we didn't get a police chief. Can you assure us that if we budget for a town administrator, we really will get one?
Nope. Because if I did that, I would be committing to hiring somebody good or bad. And I'm not willing to do that for you. And it's not just me. When we tried to hire a police chief, we had 11 people at the table. When we did it the time before that, Erwin was at the table basically representing each of the constituencies. So no, I will not commit to hiring somebody no matter what, for any position. Did we move on?
I hope so.
Could we please silence all cell phones in the building, please?
So, just in light of what you said, I'm not good at expressing myself, but if you find that you budgeted for the position, but you don't find someone that you feel is qualified, what happens to that money that you budgeted? Does it disappear into nowhere, or is it take it out?
It goes back to you at the end of the year through a mechanism called fund balance, which we could talk about for hours. But the gist of it is that once the voters raise and appropriate an amount of money, it's either spent or it's not. If it's not spent, it shows up as a resource during the next fiscal year. And you will notice if we get to the warrant tonight, which we are not obliged to do, because this is a budget hearing, that many of the warrant items, as they were last year, are proposed to be funded in part or in whole from unfunded fund, unassigned, fund balance, which is money that we raised and appropriated in prior years and did not spend for one reason or another. And hiring a police chief is exactly one of those reasons. That salary money didn't go away. It gets recycled into 2016, which then, and only you get to decide whether we spend it or not. Madame?
I